Hello, this is Cryptolyze. I hope you are well this Wednesday, November 2023. We're meeting today to talk about SNX, SYNTHETIX's crypto. As usual, we will dissect it into two parts. A fundamental part, we will explain what SYNTHETIX is, the role of SNX in SYNTHETIX. You will see that it is very interesting. And then we will project ourselves on the prices for purchase prices, sale prices, medium price, long term, and it starts right away. As a reminder, you always have the possibility of having free access to the educational course, which is a 60-hour training course worth €400, which allows you to learn blockchain, crypto, investment, technical analysis, trading, everything to become profitable. Through 130 videos, 400 pages of guides, quizzes to find out where you are in your progress, and all for free. To have access to this lifelong training, simply use the platform of one of our partners. Everything is explained in the comments and descriptions. We will start by presenting SYNTHETIX. Already it is an old protocol, which dates from the years 2018, in which the response to the need, was to provide liquidity to all the ecosystems which run on the blockchain. It was at the beginning of decentralized finance. We were starting to have ideas of decentralized finance, notably in the years 2019, and then 2020-2021. There was the advent of decentralized finance with a saturation of Ethereum and other problems have arrived, which is the notion of the fragmentation of liquidity and a real need to offer structural liquidity to the various decentralized exchanges. On this, SYNTHETIX offers several things. We will see them together. But the first thing it offers is liquidity itself. That is to say that the incentive of people to place their liquidity directly on SYNTHETIX and to make this liquidity available to the different protocols through SYNTHETIX's smart contracts. So we have a real interest when we are a developer, and we want to build liquidity to potentially go through SYNTHETIX at least on part of its liquidity, especially since we have access to decentralized exchange platforms which are rather well done at the level of SYNTHETIX, which allows us to carry out different exchanges between different cryptos. And the transaction fees of these exchanges are returned to the holder of the SNX, therefore the crypto of the SYNTHETIX protocol. So there is already a first use, and the second use is the notion of SNX minting. When we deposit SNX, as we can see here, in fact, we will deposit and we will automatically borrow everything without fees, in which we will have the notion of collateralization management. I will explain it later. But above all, we will have SUSD, which is in fact a synthetic asset representing the dollar, which will have a value of the deposit that we has done. And this is important because this is where we start to have a real interest in liquidity. That is to say that SYNTHETIX takes SNX to lend you dollars equivalent to the current SNX. And from there, you can either buy it, trade it, buy something else, other cryptos, and so on. This allows you to have borrowing capacity without anything, without fees and without deposit fees, and that is really important, and without interest. That's really interesting, in which we can create structures at the level of decentralized finance around the SNX, which is very well done, in which we will deposit SNX to borrow without fees and then do different leverage and thus use the leveraged decentralized finance without paying interest, which is quite interesting. So that's the simple version because it's a little more complicated than that. We have a notion of collateralization which is real. That is to say that the collateral is the SNX from the moment you have dollars, and therefore the SNX behind it relies on the SNX itself and the collateralizations of the SYNTHETIX protocol. So you have to understand that if you ever have an SNX that collapses, you have a risk of liquidation, and therefore at that moment, it also implies that your SNX can be sold to be able to recover, in fact, the SUSD you have, okay? So on this, you just have to be really careful. There is a form of collateralization that is present. You have no interest, but there is collateralization, and there is a risk of liquidation which is real. Besides, SYNTHETIX offers several other things. Here, I'm really going to talk about centralized finance, but the goal of SYNTHETIX is to offer accessibility to, precisely, synthetic tools. So, when we are used to traditional finance, in particular ETFs, we have, for example, ETFs which are synthetic, ETFs which are real. The real ones imply that I hold the collateral, so I hold, for example, in a spot BTC ETF, I hold the BTC. And if I'm being synthetic, that implies that I'm emulating what's happening with BTC. So there are several ways to do this. But they are specialized in the notion of emulation, that is to say, the representation of a course in a synthetic way. This is truly the strength of SYNTHETIX, and they are capable of being able to tokenize and explode absolutely anything and everything. This is a bit like the idea we have of the RWA real-world asset, in which we have the capacity to be able to tokenize a little bit of everything, and SYNTHETIX precisely, tokenization is their specialty, and in particular tokenization crypto assets, in which you can tokenize both a crypto and, why not, the representation of an Apple share. We must understand that afterwards there is the notion of splitting in the stock market. Therefore, in the stock market, in which we cannot buy, for example, 1 share of Apple or large shares in which we unfortunately have prices which are quite significant. It is possible in certain platforms because they themselves, in fact, will make you a synthetic asset, which represents this part, and so on. And precisely, SYNTHETIX could position itself in this area, and that is why it is an interesting course, a protocol which is interesting to follow. In addition, it is something which is old, which has kept a lot of liquidity, and which also has the capacity to offer free leverage to decentralized finance. Especially since, as we will see in the technical part right away, we actually have a setup which is really interesting, in which we had an accumulation phase which was positioned until in 2019, first break in the accumulation, we retest, and then very strong upward acceleration which took place in 3 stages, in which we had the first acceleration precisely with August 2020. Then we had the retracement second big acceleration on the first part of the bull run, 2021. With the advent of decentralized finance, the complexity of having precisely everything that is liquidity, the notion of fractability of liquidity. And then we had the second wave with the effective retracement, which gave us here this retracement at the level of the SNX, so we have the establishment of a wick-off distribution in BC, Arkansas, ST. And there, currently, we are in the SO. So what is SO? This is the sign of weakness. If you don't know what it is, I invite you to join the Discord. There is a lot of documentation related to it, or simply search on the internet for distribution, where you will have all the information for understand what a distribution is and you are looking for accumulation. You have everything for accumulation. In which wick-off accumulation is a lateralization structure which simply allows the price to be crushed at particular levels and then to recover the liquidity to accumulate this token there and then leave. These are classic phases that we really find on each type of asset in which we have here the PSI, therefore the first intention of a bearish stop with the retracement. Here we have the SC and here we have an ST, okay, so we have SC, Arkansas, ST, and we are in a retest phase. We did not have an STB, so we did not have any liquidity gain despite the various retests which were carried out in particular in June on the announcements of the SEC. We did not take the low liquidity. And therefore, for the moment, we are more in a classic structuring of lateralization, and what we are going to expect is in fact a low dignity taking to get below the $5 at the level of the SNX to get this low there and this low there, which will be important to be able to gain strength and accelerate upwards, because at the currently we are in a compression. You can see it clearly here. It is a very nice compression, and if we look, I did not put the RSI, but if we look at the RSI, we can see that the RSI is under also a form of compression, which is very present. We can see it clearly here. TAC, we have first line, second line, and we can clearly see that we have a very nice compression in terms of momentum. When we have a structure like that, it generally implies that the accumulation is well underway and that we are in an interesting zone. What we will have to aim for initially is the breaking of the $3.3, $3.4 to actually break this ranging zone, get out of the accumulation zone, and then do a retest. That is to say acceleration, make a bullish break here, structure here, either do a pullback to start again, we will just retest the range, or go deeper. A little bit more, go for example, a pretty nice order block, and then go back up there. It's validated with a second break-off structure. There, we will have a really strong bullish signal. And what we can expect at the level of the purchase zone would be a bearish breakout to seek out precisely this zone. Nevertheless, we are in an interesting spot area if you want to be exposed to the project, if this project interests you. In the long term, we could see something quite classic with a heliotist schematic with wave 1, wave 2, and heliotist wave 3. Wave 3, how do we calculate evolution? It's very simple. We take the Fibonacci extension, we take the lowest of the price, we take the highest, and we retrace on this wave 2. This will give us a target here of 1.618, which will be with an SNX in the region of $48 for 1,608. Therefore, which is the golden ratio and which is the classic target of a great wave 3 impulsive Elliotist. This big wave 3 will be done if it is done in a bull run, and towards the end of the bull run agree, it is an asset that needs to have a lot of volume to give value to the SNX. especially since we have a small inflation at the level of the token, which is linked to a burning mechanism on the trading fees which are recovered at the level of their decentralized exchange. Nevertheless, we have something which is slightly inflationary, so we must be able to compensate for that, and we must volume to be able to cause the burning and to be able to really give a value to the SNX so that people can deposit the SNX, stack the SNX, and then borrow, namely that when we stack the SNX, we have a part of the trading fees which arrive, which makes it possible to complete the potential gap between the value of the SNX and the SUSD that we recovered to avoid liquidation. There is a whole system that is set up like that, but that does not prevent us from having a valuation of the SNX. That if we have a return of centralized finance and an RWA narrative that will arrive, we will have a valuation of the SNX. On the other hand, we have key points to take. These evolving targets at the end of 2025, we can look for targets already at $15, in which we will certainly have people who will come out here because we have, as usual, people who are stuck here with certainly a form of hedging that they have put in place to protect their SNX position from liquidation. That does not prevent the fact that there will be a reduction in the bag which will be done here, and I think that we will really have to take profits in these areas. And the second profit zone for me will be the 1.1 here on a new AT8 in the $33, even on a retest of the ATH in the $30. I think it will be interesting to play a game of profit, part of TP, to be able to validate part of the profits, if ever we have a market reversal at that time, or we have another asset, another narrative which is put in place, and therefore the SNX retraces strongly. I hope you like this video. If so, don't forget to leave me a like and a comment. It always makes me very happy. And tell me what you think of this type of asset. Do you think that the RWA, therefore the real-world asset tokenization, has a real place in the next narrative? 2024 minus 2025? Tell me everything in the comments, and we'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. for the daily news.